I'm Heather.
And I'm Desiree.
And you're listening to
the Perpetually Overdue Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perpetually Overdue Podcast. My name is Heather.
And I'm Desiree.
And this week, we are going to talk about a subject that is similar to a previous episode where we talked about basically adulting and how difficult it is and how unprepared we were for it. And still are.
Yes.
But this is going to talk about something that I hear super often among especially millennial adults, and any generation is allowed to speak on this. It might not just be our generation, but obviously we are friends with people our own age. We're usually with our peers. So this is something that we hear mostly from millennials, which is it is hard to make friends as adults.
Yeah.
Why though? And
I wonder if this is a more common issue between women than men. I don't know.
Oh, that's very interesting. I never even thought about
because when I think about adult men, I feel like, and again, I could be completely wrong, but from the outside, it almost feels like it's very easy for them to just kind of like make acquaintances at least.
Yeah.
And not that men are not emotional. Obviously, that's not true. But there's a different dynamic within their friendships than the friendships within women. So I'm curious. I wonder if this is just an us thing or if it's also them as adults, if it's difficult or just normal.
I don't know if it's strictly an us thing. I do know that my husband, he's just one of those people that people see his face and they just want to tell him their entire life story. And I am not that way. I am the face that's like, don't come near me, don't talk to me. Usually,
she's like,
I mean, I've been told since I was a kid that I was intimidating, so I don't know if I'm the most approachable person, but whenever I'm with him in public, it'll just be the weirdest thing. We could be at the checkout line at Lowe's or some store, and the cashier, even at self-checkout, will get into this deep conversation. I've been on planes with him where people that have sat next to us will get into entire conversations with him. And I'm just like, how does this always happen to you? And not only that, but he's not the biggest fan of it, but he's also really nice. And so he doesn't necessarily always know how to get out of these conversations. And then I remind him too, especially when he kind of complains about the fact that people just like bleh to him. I'm like, you also ask every single person that you come in contact with, how's your day going? And you can't really ask that question without expecting an array of responses. Because you might have those people that are like, good, and they know the decorum of like, nobody's asking you to get into your personal trauma. We're just being nice. And then other people are like, no, let me tell you about this really deep, horrible thing that just happened to me. So for him, I do find that it's easy. Every job that he's ever been in, he's had coworkers that are friends and then have remained friends after, more acquaintances. But a lot of his friendships are from back in the day. Like his really close friendships are from back in the day. I can't say that he has made any friends, like actual close friends, in recent times. I don't think that there's anybody in his adult life that he's super close with, because he has 3 really close friends, and those are all from back in the day, except maybe one. He met his friend Ryan through his previous marriage. His previous wife was friends with Ryan's previous wife, and that's how they met each other. But he was still in his early 20s when that happened. So I don't know if that counts exactly. Like, what age would you say would be like the cutoff time of adult friendships, making friends as adults?
It's, I think it goes in stages because, again, we are very different people in our 20s. And usually most of us go through a lot of transitions. Entering the world in our 20s thinking we're supposed to have it figured out in our 20s, and then actually experiencing your 20s and realizing, whoa, no, I don't have it figured out and I have no clue what I'm doing and I'm approaching 30. So I think I would say maybe that thinking possibly can start maybe late 20s, because I feel like by then you're approaching 30, you're being smacked with some reality. Mm-hmm. And that's when you realize what you wanted in your early 20s is not what you're wanting as you're approaching your 30s. And that's when you really start choosing also different people in your life. You start learning to create more boundaries. And that's when things, I think, start getting harder.
I would agree with you. I would probably say it really hits hard in your 30s of just I have not made a new friend, or if I have, it's somebody who just like every once in a while will talk to each other, but it's not really anything established. And I will say, kind of piggybacking off of what you just said about whether it's a male or female, or, you know, like if it's a gendered thing, is that I do feel like a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men have very surface level relationships, even with their best friends. They don't really get into the deep emotional stuff, even with their friends, which is not healthy. It's not a good thing. This is why suicide rate amongst males is so high, because it just comes from that lesson that they were taught early on in their childhood that men are not allowed to talk about their feelings or express their feelings. So they don't do it with anybody. It's always refreshing to see male friendships that go a lot deeper. I've witnessed that with my husband, but with women, it's just automatic.
Emotions everywhere.
It is. And not only do we go deep emotionally, we share so much with each other.
Instantly, usually,
Exactly. And even with my husband being very emotionally intelligent and having deeper friendships with his male friends, he'll tell me things, stories, and I'll be like, well, what did he feel about this? Or what did he say about this? And he'll be like, I didn't ask that question. And it's so automatic for me to go, but why wouldn't you ask that question? Because to me, I like getting to the heart of the matter, but also helping my friend that I'm talking to maybe navigate through their feelings. And sometimes you need people to pull it out of you, ask questions, different things like that, to get the wheels turning in your own head of like, oh, maybe that's why I do this, or that's why I feel this way. And I realized that even men that have deeper friendships don't always do that.
And that's what I meant in the beginning when I was trying to explain. It's not that they're not emotional or capable of emotions, but their dynamic is very different than what I typically see with us women. Whereas we will ask questions, we will go deeper, we want to know all the things, where they're satisfied with just like a surface level explanation and they move on. Whereas we're like, no. I need more, and I want to get it, and I want to understand it, and I want to know where you were. How were you in that moment?
Deep emotional connection. I think too that men, obviously with your friendships with men, you have to have some sort of compatibility personality wise. But it's also like common interest, right? Because a lot of the time that they spend together is not getting into these deep conversations, whereas women could sit in a cafe, do nothing, and just talk the entire time. So they're connected by common interests, and they're connected by similar personalities. I would say that the same goes for women, but we can, like I said, also connect on a deeper level, which I do think sometimes also presents more issues. And I will say that it's good and bad. So with guys, because they're not always getting as deep as women do, you don't always uncover things that could potentially be problems in the friendship. And then you're also less likely to maybe hit a nerve.
Conflict is handled very differently between men and women, I've noticed.
Yes.
They very easily can quickly write off something that happened between them and then move on happily and be cool. Whereas if the same situation happened between two women, it wouldn't resolve that easily or that nonchalantly.
No, and even if it gets to a physical point, a perfect example of this, and this is so funny because it just goes to show how it's not just something that we're also teaching young men, but it's just something that's like weirdly ingrained in them. My nephews. My two older nephews, each of them got into a physical altercation with kids that they were going to school with at a very early age. We're talking like 6 years old. I never forget, one of my nephews, Isaac, it was a kid in class who was very disruptive. He was picking on everybody and he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And Isaac is very quiet. He's very meek and mild. He doesn't blow up. He's not very talkative. He's way more introverted, all of that. So it was a while. And this is something that the teacher even attested to, that this kid was pushing and pushing and pushing. And finally, one day, Isaac snapped. And from 1 minute to the next, like the teacher turned her head for like a second, came back, and Isaac was on top of him, just wailing on him. Now, the funny thing is the teacher was like, I let him go off a little bit before I pulled him up because the kid was such a nuisance.
The little shit needed a little lesson.
He needed an ass whooping. But the weird thing is that they became best friends after that.
Shut up.
Yes, and that happened with Isaiah too, who's a little bit older. That would never happen if it was two girls.
No, absolutely not. If they end up befriending you, I assure you it's a frenemy situation where they are plotting behind your back.
And that's why I feel like it is something that may be innately in some men, but it's also something that we teach them as well. Of like, first of all, a lot more guys or boys are taught to deal with conflict with violence and with their fists, whereas women are told to talk it out, to resolve it, conflict resolution. So I think that there's this like weird understanding. And if you're a listener that's a guy or a viewer that's a guy, please feel free to comment about this to give us insight about it. But it's this weird thing of like, I can punch you in the face and then we'll be cool. Like, I don't get that. To me, that's such a violation. But because I think that women, we work things out more on an emotional level than a physical level. And once you hit me emotionally, you hurt me emotionally, it's a lot harder. But also, like, if I were to get slapped by somebody.
Ooh, this is interesting. The psychology between domestic violence between men and women. How, like, to them, this is just how they resolve conflict between other men. But obviously, it won't translate between a woman and a man. And
or a woman and a woman.
Or a woman or a woman. But that's that's a whole other. But I just had a eureka moment. Anyways, keep going.
But if a female friend hit me, to me that tells me whatever I need to know about you, that you're so given over to your base sort of carnal instincts that I can't have you in my life or have you around me if you can't have enough self-control to keep your hands to yourself.
But it's because as females we speak a different language than men.
We do.
And we know that is something that would never be tolerated between each other.
Unacceptable.
Yeah. That's not how we handle anything, and that's a line that is beyond crossed when done.
If it gets physical, we are enemies.
Yeah.
Now, when I was younger, this is an interesting exception. When I was younger, I would probably say like maybe 10 years old. I lived in a neighborhood where all the kids were friends, and we were friends for as long as we all lived there, which were many, many years. So this is like core, fundamental, formative year friendships. I did get into a fight with who I considered at that time to be my best friend, and it got physical. And slapping, hair pulling. I think that there was even some very harsh things said. I think she said something about my absentee father that set me off.
Damn. Okay.
Because I think I was the one that started getting physical. What she said, though, cut me really deep, and that's why it happened. Now, I remember I walked away crying. She was on the ground crying, and nobody really won. There was no winner in that scenario. I don't know how we ended up making up, but I think at that time, because we were so young and we were so underdeveloped, like our brains were so underdeveloped, that we didn't really understand the severity of what had happened between us. So I think that that's why we were able to continue being friends after that, even though it had gotten physical between us. That was like literally the only physical fight I've ever been in. Oh, except for one. Well, it wasn't really physical, but I threw a piece of toast at my sister one time. No, we got into a slap fight, but it was nothing above the neck. Something about the face is just so disrespectful to me if somebody like hits you in the head or the face, but like, and it was just so like, it was just like really not even a big deal. And then I got so angry that I just grabbed the nearest thing to me, which was a piece of toast with peanut butter on it, and threw it on her white shirt. landed like but all that to say, it's not my first instinct to do something like that. Was very out of character for me. And I think had I been an adult or even a teenager where I had more emotional intelligence, a little bit more control over my emotions, I don't think that that probably would have happened at all, where I would have gotten into a physical fight. And two, I think that it wouldn't have been something that we would have just been friends after that. I think that line would have been crossed.
And not to say, obviously, that women don't get in. Plenty of women and girls and teenagers get into physical fights. It's what we're saying is that usually it's rare that after those physical altercations, you're best friends right after.
You're cool.
Yeah, you can get over it easily, kind of a deal. It's interesting trying to think about that dynamic and wondering how it may differ for men. But at least for us as women, I don't know what it is about getting older and just having a harder, like, think back to when we were little. Think how easily we made friends when we were little. Even if we weren't the most popular kid, even if we had that one or two friend every season or chapter in our life, that friendship more times than not was very randomly and easily made.
Yeah. In a good way too. I think there's many reasons for that. Over the years, I have pondered this question a lot because I will be honest, as an adult, my friendships are scattered all over the country. And so there have been times where I've moved to a place, like, for example, I live in Colorado now, and I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice to have some female friends to go out with, to do hobbies with, different things like that. I love my husband to death, but it's a different dynamic. So I have wanted that, but I've also known the obstacles facing that. And I'll get into what I've done to try to make friends as an adult and how it hasn't not worked out for me. But I think there's a couple of things. One, I think that when you're young, you can just be friends with anybody. Like, you're not thinking, who is this person? Do I vibe with them? Do we click? You're like, oh, you're another child. We're best friends now.
Exactly.
And that's a good thing, like that ease of being so open to new people and new experiences. As you get older, your anxiety gets worse and worse and worse. Your insecurities get worse in some ways. So I think that there's more that we have as adults that are blocking us from being so open to just anybody. A lot of that is learning from our own experiences, because when you're a kid, you don't have as many experiences where you've been hurt. So there's an innocence, there's a naivety there. Whereas with an adult, you have all these experiences with friendships where you have been taken advantage of, you've been backstabbed, you've been hurt, and you feel like, I have to be more guarded. And that's not a bad thing. It's hard to find that balance of, let me have boundaries and be guarded, but let me also be open to the possibility of just meeting a random person and trying to make a connection with them. So I think that's one of the things. And then also, when you're a kid, you are more oftentimes put in contexts where you're forced to meet new people. School. Yep. I was in after school care, so not only did I have my friends that were in school in my class, but then I had my after school care friends, neighborhood friends, because you want to go outside and play. And then, you know, like, if you're in a sport, if you're in any sort of extracurricular activity, you're also meeting people there. So when you are in school, even high school, even college, but then you leave that, and then it's like the workplace. Then the workplace becomes where you meet people.
But the dynamic is so different from school. It's not the same friendship making wise, because suddenly you're in a different environment that requires a certain type of behavior. Whereas in school, I feel like you were still able to be yourself. There was a freedom, there was a casualness to just being, even if you were in a classroom or doing a sport or whatever. Whereas suddenly you're in this new environment where you're expected to perform a certain way. And though, yes, you start learning how to make acquaintances with your coworkers, you start realizing as you're getting older, oh, this isn't like making friendships when we were younger. This is different now. The rules don't play the same here.
No, and honestly, as an adult, I feel like you really have to have that click moment with somebody for it to be like, we're work besties, we love spending time with each other, we talk to each other outside of work. Which, in school, I had really good friends, but then I would go home and I wouldn't necessarily always have those friendships outside of school. But so much of my time was spent in school that it felt like I saw these people all the time. We spent time together. Some of those friendships did translate out, but not all of them. And so I remember when I worked at Starbucks, I got a lot of great friends from there, but I think that that's an exception to the rule because I haven't really had that since then. There are places where you can find community, like church. Organized religion is one of them, but it's a very specific context where if you don't stay in that context, you might not have those friends.
And you know what I just thought of? You know what I also think the contrast when it comes to school and entering the workplace is that in school, you were with everyone at the same age level. Whereas work, suddenly you're working with people from all walks of life, of all ages.
Yep.
So you're not always now with a bunch of other 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds. You're now working with a 35-year-old, a 50-year-old. It can vary. And obviously, you're not always going to click with someone who's in a different stage in life than you are.
And even with that, you bring up a really good point because stages of life too. So for me, even though I can be the same age as somebody, when we were younger, we were all on the same path. So if we're around the same age, we're likely doing the same thing, going to school. Maybe you have a part-time job. Maybe you have an extracurricular activity outside of work that you do. Nothing major. Now, as an adult, we can have completely different lifestyles in that you are married, you have children, and that is your world. I find that I have a bit of a hard time relating to people that have children.
Same.
Because their entire world are their kids. I very rarely meet parents that have a life outside of their kids where they're not talking about their kids 24/7.
Especially when they're so young. Like the kids are still very, very young.
So it's very difficult because it's like, how can I relate to you on that level? Like, what do we really have in common? Now, if there's something that you do outside of your kids, like you have a hobby or you just have a social life outside of your kids and it's not just with other mothers or other parents, then I might be able to connect. But it is difficult. And so there is that as well, as when you get older, the life experiences start to get broader. And so it's not as easy to relate to everyone just because they're the same age as you.
I mean, I had a friend who really was doing their part to be there for me, get close to me, and we would hang out. And it breaks my heart because they really also wanted a friend because they had just given birth to one child and they also had a toddler at the same time. And we tried, and it was so hard because obviously you have a child under 2 years old and a newborn. They were a stay-at-home mom. So that's their life. Their life are those two kids right now. There was no commonality. We used to have more in common, but then when that stage of their life happened and we were hanging out, it was really difficult because I just couldn't relate. I couldn't, understand the things that, they were going through that they wanted maybe advice about, that obviously I wasn't the right person to go to for that. And vice versa. My life was looking very different to theirs. And so it was just, it was sad because both parties really wanted to make it work.
Yeah.
And the reality is that when sometimes where you are in life is just so polar opposite to someone else's, even with the best of intentions, there's just, it's not gonna click.
I think that goes for a lot of relationships too, because I've thought about this even just culturally too. People that live outside the United States. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing that really can stand in your way if you really want to make it work and you just meet at a level that is beyond culture. Mm-hmm. But there are cultural differences that I do think that sometimes can dissuade people from being in relationships with people that are outside of their culture because they don't really relate or understand. Mm-hmm. And for us, because we're so Americanized, even though we're Hispanic, I feel like we're Americanized enough that we can assimilate into the culture here and the society. And so it's not really hard for us to relate to other Americans. Mm-hmm. Even still, there may be people that we come across where like, wow, we have nothing in common. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's, like you said, what it is. It's about commonality and meeting people where they are. Now, with you not having a child of your own, you can't really meet her there. It would have to be on her to meet you where you are, in the sense of the things that you had in common before she had kids, the things that brought you together. That would have to continue on in order for that to happen. So like, for example, me and my sister has kids. I don't have kids. It has never been an issue with our relationship because when we get together, even though she gets interrupted 1.5 million times in that conversation, she will talk to me about things that have nothing to do with her being a mother. And I appreciate that about her because she's more than that. She's more than just somebody's wife. She's more than just a mother. She is her own person. And I feel like, unfortunately, especially as women, we tend to lose our identity in our kids. I say our, like I have any, but like women tend to lose their identity in their kids. Then that becomes their whole personality. And I think that it's at that point, not that you can't be friends with someone who has kids, but when it becomes their whole personality and they don't talk about anything else other than that, then yeah, if you don't have kids, what the hell are you going to contribute? Nothing. And it's hard because I don't blame them for that. No. But it's like, I hate to make this comparison because it's not the same. Let me just preface it by saying that. But it's like somebody who gets a new puppy and that's all that they talk about, and they want to show you pictures of their puppy all the time, and they want to talk about this thing that their puppy did or this thing that they're doing. And at some point you're like, okay, can we talk about something other than your puppy? When it comes to stuff like that, it's acceptable, right? Like if somebody was overly conversing about their dog, you'd be like, do you have an identity outside of your dog? Can we talk about anything else? And people are more understanding of that. When it comes to kids, they will bite your head off if you say that they talk too much about their kids. So that's why
and it's sometimes it's the fact that like, not only can I not relate, but I don't care about I don't care that they, did this or did that, or I have no personal investment in this to hear about it. So I'm sorry, but no.
Thank you for bringing that up, because they will literally send you a picture of every little milestone that child has accomplished. And I was like, I'm so glad they went pee-pee in the potty. I don't know what to say to this. I don't care. Like, and it matters to you because it's your kid. Okay. And I think that we forget that it doesn't matter to everybody. Like with my nephews, there were certain milestones that I was really excited for, but I was so grateful that my sister didn't send me a picture of every little freaking thing that they did, because it would drive me insane. And I have people like that in my life, and I'm like, can we just...
And then there's an expectation for you to react in a way that they find you should react, which is this fascination and awe and praise. And I'm like,
yeah, your child is a genius. They're the most beautiful child that has ever existed. Like... And this is, we're talking a lot about people with kids, but this can translate to literally anything. You have to have common interests to be able to maintain a friendship, or at the very least, you have to have a connection where you are able to go deep with that person. At least for me, I'll just speak for myself. I have to have a connection with them where we can have good conversation. We have a good time with each other, even if we're not doing anything. But it's also nice when you have things in common, because I see the way that each one of us lights up when we talk about something that we both like, and we're like, have you heard this? And you're like, oh, let me tell you about this. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It always sucks when you're like excited about something and your friend has like zero interest in it. And hey, even the closest friend, they're not always going to like everything that you like.
Exactly.
I had this huge thing for BTS. I still do. Desiree doesn't care.
At all.
Doesn't care. But then we both talk about The Fifth Element and we'll just go off on a tangent for like an hour. So it's about finding those common places. Yeah. Both parties need to kind of meet there. It can't just be one-sided.
So why do you think we can't seem to do that as adults?
Well, it's, you know what's so interesting? So on the flip side, I have realized that not all of us want to. Have you ever seen those funny videos on TikTok or Instagram where they will go through how each generation reacts to something? Somebody ringing the doorbell.
Yes.
Yeah. So like a boomer would be like, oh, let me go see who it is. A Gen Xer will be like, cautiously like, who is it? But still go. A millennial will literally slink.
Hide. Don't step too loudly so they don't think someone's there.
And then a Gen Zer will
Which one am I?
Ignoring it. Like it didn't even happen. I feel like our generation, we're a lot more introverted. Not all of us, again, but that whole stereotype of like how we slink onto the floor and hide because we don't like unexpected visitors. I do think that when you get to a certain age, you're not, I don't want to say you're not as outgoing as you used to be, but you're outgoing in different ways. Like in my 20s, I was like, yeah, let's go out to this bar. Let's go out dancing.
Go to the club.
Exactly. In my 30s, it's rare for that to hit me where I was like, man, I'd like to go out dancing. It's like once in a blue moon that I feel that way, or that I even really want to go out into the public and be amongst the people.
Yep.
I find that as I age, I become more comfortable being at home, more comfortable in my environment, more comfortable with just having what I have, if that makes sense. Because when you go out into the public, unfortunately, the public is there. Yeah. And I've also found that as I've gotten older, I've become a crotchety old lady. And sometimes I don't like being in public with other people because there's a lack of consideration sometimes that there are other people around. When I'm going down the aisle in the supermarket and I'm like, somebody's in the middle of the fucking aisle and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know this was your world. And that we're just living in it. Yeah. Let me stretch myself, plaster myself on the aisle to get around you. Stuff like that.
I love it when you're doing that and they still don't move. The entitlement. I'm like, really? Really? Like, I'm squeezing by you? Okay.
Girl, I can't even go to the movie theater anymore because people don't know how to act in public anymore. And I'm like, I can just sit at home and watch this without being annoyed that somebody is talking through this entire thing, having their own fucking YouTube commentary show live in the movie theater.
Yep. They probably are live streaming it at the movie theater.
Or somebody's kid is screaming bloody murder and they're just ignoring them. And it's like they're in public, so the public has to deal with that. It's just, I've realized that I have very specific preferences. And so rather than be annoyed out in public because there's a lack of consideration for personal space, for other people's environment, that I would rather be at home. So if you're at home more often, and if you're like us, that we work from home, where the fuck are you going to meet new people? Where?
Yeah. And meet them and derive a connection enough to warrant, hey, should we contact each other again? Like,
yeah,
to even get to that level requires a lot more than just having a friendly random conversation with a passerby. So then it goes to say, where the fuck do we make these friends? If not online, because that's then something I'll bring up later is the convenience that has become just making online friends versus in life, real life friends.
It's true, because you get to turn it off and on whenever you want to.
Exactly.
And there's not this sense of obligation of, oh, because we live in the same city, we should see each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the times we were not taught to set expectations with friendships. So we're not always sure what the criteria is. So you might have a friend that you used to spend a lot of time with, and then because life happened, maybe they got into a relationship, maybe you got into a relationship, maybe you're both in a relationship, you have less time to spend with each other, and you're over here going, is that okay? Should I make more of an effort? No, yes. And then when you do, sometimes you don't feel like they're into it, and you're like, am I forcing this? Maybe we're just texting friends. You know what I mean? Like, there's all of these questions. We don't ever have the conversation to set expectations of like, what do you want this friendship to look like? And it's scary to have that conversation sometimes, because we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to lose a friend. But sometimes that can also lead to misunderstandings or guilt of like, wow, I haven't spoken to that person in a whole week, when really they're off living their life and they're fine. So I think there's some of that as well, but I remember being in Texas and having a roommate who was a good friend of mine at the time, and then wanting to have more friends. I was a single person. I was doing the online dating thing, but, you know, I wasn't really looking for friendship in online dating. And I remember when Bumble BFF came out.
My God.
And I actually did it. I got onto Bumble BFF to meet some girlfriends. And I would match with girls and we would chat back and forth, but whenever it came time to meeting in person, they would always chicken out.
What?
And I never understood that. And I was like, this is just as hard as dating. I don't want to do this.
I would have thought that would have been easier, because
I don't,
especially between like female friendships. I'm like, if you actually clicked with someone via an app and texting with a female, it's not the same as trying to date a man. It would be like, oh my God, I love chatting with you. Let's go meet up for coffee.
Thank you. And you would assume that that would be the case. And so it was very confusing to me. I felt the same. I felt bewildered, just like you, of how is this the same thing? I get enough of this with online dating. I don't need to add to this now trying to make friends with girls. And every time that I initiate meetup of like, let's get coffee together or whatever, I get it as a woman being cautious, but I'm like, if you're willing to go out with a man,
exactly,
why would you be afraid of me?
Exactly. We're still meeting up in a public place. I mean,
and I don't know if it was like where I was at. I lived in San Antonio at the time, and dating was also really terrible there. The place that I'm in right now, people are super friendly. Yes, I mean, you've experienced it when you came and visited.
So nice and refreshing.
It is. It doesn't always translate. Like, for example, my husband and I went to Barnes and Noble. We bought some books. The cashier was super friendly, super talkative. We found out that we all like to play Magic the Gathering. And she's like, oh my God, we should get together and play Magic and all this stuff. She gave me her number. And she's like, do you like EDM music? And we're not into EDM or going to EDM concerts. So we were like, well, not really, but you know, we do like going to concerts. She ended up texting me and asked if we wanted to go to this concert. And we didn't know the band and it wasn't our style of music, but we were like, unfortunately, we can't make it, but we do like going to shows. So definitely let us know anytime you're going to go to a show. Never heard from her again. And I don't know if it was the initial rejection, but we're trying to find common interests.
Exactly. Which you already did. It's like, okay, the concert thing didn't work out, but what we first connected on was Magic the Gathering. So let's focus on finding a way to come together.
Get together for that. There was that, but then there was also this hesitation within me of, yes, I want friends that are girls, but I'm so comfortable with not being in awkward social situations because I've been in so many.
Same.
Where you're forced to go to dinner with somebody or you're forced to be in context with somebody and you're just waiting for it to be over. And it sucks so much energy out of you trying to just be social in that situation. And I think that there's a fear there of, oh, what if it doesn't click? What if we get together to play Magic and it's not a good time? You know, we're like not, you know what I mean?
How do we break up then after this?
Not just that, because I think you just don't text the person. But it's more so of like, do I even want to put myself in that situation to begin with, of feeling uncomfortable when I could just be sitting at home? So Nick and I were like, oh yeah, we took the number. As soon as we left, we're like, oh, we kind of like playing Magic, just the two of us. And we're like, we're horrible. And see, this is what's hard, because it's not just that the circumstances are hard. Sometimes we're obstacles unto ourselves when it comes to making friends as an adult.
And I wonder if that, like you were saying earlier, becomes more and more apparent the older we get, because it's true. I mean, at 41 now, I'm good. Like, sure, it would be it would be nice to have a friend physically in the city I currently live in that I can physically maybe meet up. But then at the same time, I think, would it though? All the times that I don't want to go out and I don't want to be out there in the heat and doing things that may not be fun or maybe uncomfortable, maybe I'm good. Actually, I have like a community of online friends in the writing community. I have my best friend who, it would be a completely different story. I hope one day we live in the same city again, because that would be a whole different day. And that's the thing, like, we've already established ourselves that bringing on someone new and needing to go through that process to see if it even clicks and works long term just feels so exhausting as you get older.
It's so true. You know, I was just thinking that too, is that there are very few people, and maybe if you're an extrovert, it works differently for you. Because like with my sister, I'm like, how are you friends with so many people? Like, I don't understand how you get along with so many different people. For me, I have to have that click where whether we go out or whether we stay in, we're having a good time, we're laughing. Humor and laughter is a big thing for me. And we're getting along, even if we have differences in personalities. I think it's maybe some lofty expectations to have, but as you get older, you're like, if I'm gonna step out of my comfort zone, which is really comfy for me, you know what I mean, and I'm going to put an effort and energy into something, I want to make sure that I'm gonna get a return on that. And this is gonna work. And sometimes you learn that it only works in a specific context. Like maybe if you live in the same city. Like, for example, with you and your online friends. Do you feel like all of the friendships that you have online would translate in person?
If we're gonna be completely honest, now don't go analyzing which category you fit in if you're listening. Don't do that.
No.
But let's be honest. Just like with any friendship groups, there are obviously people that you're gonna click with more than others. There's some that you're going to feel maybe more comfortable sharing aspects of yourself than others. There's things that maybe you relate with more, like, for example, there's a couple people that I can easily talk about my chronic health issues because they have the same ones. So I feel more comfortable talking about that with them. Not that I hold it back from the other people in our group, but obviously I don't want to be bringing that up all the time with people who they'll sympathize because they care about me, but they don't get it. And I don't want to always be talking about it when it's not even something they can relate to. So just, again, with any friendships, I think some thrive depending context and circumstances and commonality. I think some might thrive more than others in person. And I think that's just a reality. There's an aspect to being online that, like you said, it's convenient for all of us, because I don't shy away from talking about, I have mental health struggles. So I sometimes need to detach. And when my mind and my body are like, I'm done, and it's never personal. Online gives me the ability to be able to step away when I need to, whereas I find that would be a lot harder to do in person without needing to navigate through some potentially messy emotions.
I think we do put more expectation even on ourselves when we know that we live in the same city as somebody and we're used to meeting them in person, or at least on occasion, than if they were like a chronically online friend, which may or may not be something that's translated to the other person. They may not feel that way, but you yourself, you feel the guilt of like, oh, I've checked out and I need, to go into my hibernation mode. It's not even just online friends. I will say that I've had friends who we lived in the same city, and while we lived in the same city, we got together either often or semi-often. And then when I moved away, the friendship dramatically changed. And it wasn't necessarily something I was wanting. I definitely contributed to in certain aspects, but in others, I put in a lot of effort that I felt like was not being reciprocated.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very much a person of like energy matches energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not trying to communicate with me or whatever, put in effort, I'm not eventually gonna stop doing that as well.
Yeah.
So I do think that it does take effort regardless, because even with us, we have intentionality of like, yeah, we meet for filming the podcasts, but we also will occasionally watch a movie together just for fun, just to hang out. But it still takes intention to be like, hey, what's your schedule like? Hey, what's your schedule like? So it still takes effort. So you have to like want to do those things.
Yes.
But we're not online friends. It's different when you are like, hey, I'm doing a stream. You can show up or not show up. You know what I mean? Like, it's really at your convenience.
Yes. Yeah.
And that also works really well. And if that works for other people to just hang out when you're available, then that's great. Like, if it's not upsetting anybody, if it's not diminishing the friendship in any sort of way, you don't have to fix it if it ain't broke, kind of thing.
Yep.
So for me, some of those friendships that when we moved away from each other didn't carry over, some of those were disappointing because of how close we were. And then others, I kind of was like, okay, when we do talk, there's no love lost there. But then it makes me realize it's probably because it only went so deep, or I only knew this person for so long.
Yeah.
I think the deeper connection you have, the longer you've known someone, the more it cuts.
Yes.
If
absolutely.
that friendship disintegrates. But I do find that, just like the situation with Barnes and Noble, that sometimes it just fizzles out.
Yeah. And honestly, with time and the distance, it does give you perspective on then what the true level of that connection was. And, you know, either take it or leave it, let it go, and take it for what it was or it wasn't. Which again, I think becomes easier when we get older. We stop caring, and caring not in a bad way, but like we don't let it affect us in a over like thinking toxic way that we do when we're younger. We let things affect us when we're younger, sometimes way too deeply, when really they never should have held that place in your thought, in your life, but we put it there and we made it bigger than what it was, and we suffered for making it bigger than what it was. Whereas we're older now and we're like, we're seeing a little more clearly, and so I think we're less bothered by certain things.
I think too, like, and maybe you can relate to this, but I think that sometimes when we're young, because we care, and this is the negative side of what you just said, because you talked about the positive, I'm going to touch on the negative. We stay in certain friendships longer than we should.
Yeah.
Because the person's familiar, or because we don't want to hurt their feelings, or we don't want to get into conflict. And when you get older, you're like, yeah, I don't care how long I've been friends with you. If you become toxic, you're gone.
Yep.
I will give you certain amount of chances, and if you continue to ruin those chances, it'll get to a point where it's like, I'm done.
Yep.
So I do think that we do give a shit less as we get older, of like, I'm not just gonna stand for toxicity in my life just because we've known each other for a long time, or because we were once really good friends. Like, if the friendship is not healthy, it's not healthy. Here's an interesting question for you, because you are a chronically online person, not in a bad way, but do you think that part of the reason why it's so hard to make friends now, especially as an adult, is because, just like with dating, we have so many people and options? I don't have to have as many friends in person, because I can just go on a Twitch stream, or I can do gaming, and I can have a writing community online and be able to get that socialization that I want without necessarily having to go out or having to do it in this specific parameter. It almost feels like, I don't want to say better, but like it's more convenient.
Yeah.
If that makes
No,
sense.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. For me, definitely, I feel like with those I already have within my circle, adding is not a convenient thing because it's a lot to juggle, period.
Yeah.
And so honestly, it does feel easier that I get to have this community of friends of various levels and things. And it's from a level of comfort that's easily accessible for me here. But then, yeah, there's the idea of then adding more, the effort it would take to add also IRL new people and go through the whole preliminary stages of whether this friendship is even gonna become a thing, and then what kind of thing and what level of thing. And there's so many dynamics when it comes to even adding new friendships in your life. Are we gonna be besties friends? Are we gonna be more acquaintance friends? Are we gonna be semi-close friends? Like, there's just, you never know.
It's so true.
And honestly, I think for me, one of the last in-person friendships that I made were coworkers. And there was a season where, we would hang out outside of work. Not a lot, but a lot for me. For me, it was a lot. And it changes your day-to-day very much so.
Oh, sure.
And so I think what makes it harder to want to invite that back into my life now is that not only do I have like these new set friends online, but I have a routine that works with the way our dynamic is now, that adding someone IRL from the outside doesn't feel like an urgent desire to do, because I know how much it would then change what my routine looks like. And again, as you get older, I feel like once you find levels of comfort in your day-to-day, it better take something really damn special to make you want to change that and bring in something new.
I hear you, because I feel like too, if you're content with that, if you're content with your routine and your day-to-day, there's only ever on occasion times where I was like, oh, I wish I could go out with a friend to do this or go out with a friend to do that. I have such a good relationship with my husband that I'm content with it being the two of us, and then talking to my friends on the phone or texting or occasionally having a FaceTime date. And I want them to come and visit, or me to go visit them, so that we can have that in-person interaction. But you know, it's temporary. Like, unless you're going to live in the same city, it is hard to add on to the friends that you already have, even if they are long distance, because you're adding an additional person on your plate. So I think that also is something that I considered as I got older, is like, who do I want to give my energy to? I want to give my energy to the people who are giving me their energy. That's energy matching energy. And we go through ebbs and flows with all of my friendships. But if I care about your friendship, if I value it, I'm going to put the effort into it. And if there's a season where we don't talk as much, that's okay. As long as we're both on the same page about it. Again, the expectations. And then we'll go back to the seasons in which we're interacting more and we're having more FaceTime or more talks on the phone or different things like that. I think it's when there's no effort put forth or very little effort put forth that you're just kind of like, and I've experienced that as well. So it's interesting because this conversation started with us going like, why is it so hard to make friends? And then we're like, we are our biggest obstacles. Granted, don't get me wrong. Like, again, you need the right context to make friends, to have that meet cute. Yeah. You know, which we've talked about before, to make that first impression. And then also to want to step outside of your comfort zone, especially if it's very nice and comfy. You love it. And put forth effort into something that you don't really know where it's going to go. And you want it to add value to your life. So you don't want to bring anything into your life, especially if you have peace. Yes. If you have peace, you don't want to bring anything in your life that potentially could disrupt that peace. Yeah. So there's a lot of dynamics that are in that. And even as an adult, like, there are places you can go, like church, like the gym. But it's like, how often do you approach somebody and be like, hey girl, I saw you, and blah, 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 blah. Even if you have a conversation. I've had conversations with other girls in the gym. Yeah. We never exchanged phone numbers. I exchanged phone numbers with this one girl because she was asking me about my workout routine. And I was telling her, I was like, well, if you're ever in the gym, let me know and we can work out together. Never heard from her again. Yeah. And that was here in the city that I currently live in, where everybody's super nice. Yeah. Sometimes it just doesn't. Yeah. It's just, you can't force anybody. No. Or like, yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Because honestly, at the end of the day, like, it has to be something that just, there's a connection, something that clicks. And then after, like you were saying, from both sides, then it takes intentionality where people are putting in the effort to want to pursue something. And I think for both parties to feel that, it's a little more rare, especially these days, than it used to be.
A lot more.
A lot. Yeah. It is. It's rare. We're not as open to also taking the risks that we did 30 plus years ago.
Very first point that I made in this episode. We're so open when we're little.
Yeah.
Not just because of the lack of experience and the naivety and the innocence, but just like there's this like desire to meet new people, to have new experiences.
We're fearless when we're young.
Exactly. And now we're kind of like, and it's not a bad thing because there's a comfort to keeping your peace. Because you learn people suck sometimes.
That's the thing. You learn all the new variables of life and reality, whereas blissfully you don't know those things yet as a child. So that's why you can be fearless, because we don't know all the bad darkness and the big bad wolves and the things people are capable of. We still haven't encountered those things. So for us, everyone's fair game. Everyone's a shiny, fun toy.
It's so true. It's even funny because the random thought, as somebody who like, we live in the age of influence and things like that. You watch somebody online and you can really enjoy their content, but even with that, there are some people who I was like, I would never be friends with you. Even if we met, I enjoy your content, I enjoy you, but we wouldn't be friends.
Yep.
Because we're just too different, or I just don't think that we would have anything in common or be able to relate to each other. Thank God you and I met when we were younger.
Oh my God. Yes.
Because it really is that like kismet moment of like,
well, that's what happened with us. I mean, as much as I fought it because I didn't like you for dumb reasons, when we were forced together by ourselves in the same room for one night, everything changed.
Couldn't deny the connection.
It was instant. It was something that we both walked away, and me more as the one who disliked you. You were the wounded party that was wrongfully disliked, but I walked away going, damn, that was fun, and that felt so easy, and it came so naturally, and we laughed, and damn it.
You said the key words right there. Easy and naturally. In order to have friends that, as an adult, that you put effort into it, that's what it has to be. Easy and natural.
Yeah.
Anything outside of that, if it feels forced and even just a little bit away from either party, it's just not going to work out. That's why that girl never called me from the gym.
Yeah.
That's
true.
why the Barnes and Noble girl, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but like for me, I didn't feel that instant, moment.
Yeah.
So it's hard. There's not always the time or the right context to have that. We were collaborating with each other when we had that moment. We were forced, and the collaboration was hours long. So it wasn't like it was a 2-second meeting. Like when you're checking out at a register.
Exactly.
I think it's equal portions of circumstances and just ourselves. And needing to have that sort of serendipitous moment. Wouldn't you feel the same way with somebody that you were dating? You would want to have that instant connection to keep talking to that person, right?
Exactly.
When Nick and I were long distance, when we started talking to each other, if that initial conversation did not click, I don't think that we would have continued to have conversations every day. Like we just so happened to have a lot in common, to be able to talk. It was so easy. Easier than any other relationship that I'd had outside of like maybe my first boyfriend who who I feel like that was one of my only relationships where we had a solid friendship, not just a romantic relationship. We probably were better friends than we were romantic. We were super young.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
With him, it was such an instant ease and connection that, again, those words that you said, you could not have summed it up any better. Easy and natural.
Yep.
That's what it is. If you want the key to adult relationships, especially amongst millennials, it needs to be easy and it needs to be natural, or bitch, it ain't happening.
It's true. I mean, we're testament of it, because imagine, I felt that and I was actively trying to dislike her and I couldn't even deny that.
We're too much alike. We have too much in common.
We are. We're soulmates. So,
with that being said, to our audience, we would love to hear your take on this subject. I'm sure that there's many other reasons that we didn't even cover within this 1-hour podcast. So if you have any ideas about why friendships as adults is so difficult, or if you have any tips about how to make friends as an adult,
For real.
Unfortunately, it's not always as easy as just meeting up with a group of people that have common interests.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I used to be a part of a writing group here in the city that I live in. I don't know that I would have been friends with anybody outside of that writing group. So if you have any tips beyond just meeting people that have common interests, we would love to hear it.
It takes more than that. It definitely takes more than that.
It really does.
It helps,
and if you have,
but yeah.
It does, but it's not the only thing. And if you have any reasons that we didn't cover, we would love to hear about it. Please reach out to us on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, even any of your podcasting platforms. Mostly Spotify is where we see comments, but please let us know. And with that being said, Desiree, take it away.
So friends, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, do all the things. If you're over on YouTube, make sure you also like the video, comment, get the engagement flowing. And if you are listening to us on a Spotify platform, if you can do us a favor and leave us a review, leave a review of the actual show, the podcast show, because that really helps engage with the algorithm so that hopefully others who would also like to listen to our content can find us. So friends, this was a lot of fun. And here's to finding more adult friendships or being content in the ones we have.
Exactly.
And until next week, y'all. Bye.
Bye.